something called precision as a technique, as a discipline. Pat, you're a guitarist, and Johnny Smith seemed to have opened some doors for you.
Well, Johnny Smith, as I said to you earlier, was there at a time when I needed to be exposed to clarity, precision, someone who knew what he wanted to play and knew how to play it. And being a child, being 11 years old, 12 years old, it was quite a catalyst to experience that first, right up front, to hear a player that really had that together. He knew what he wanted to say and he said it. And it became apparent to me that it really wasn't important, to sit down and really practice mechanical procedures. The idea was to play cleanly. Now, when I first began to play, what turned me on and what turned me on the most, what caused me to devote my life to playing, was one note.
What was that note?
One note. I watched it. My father just sort of strummed an E string, and I watched the colors in the string as it vibrated, and it was one thing, It wasn't, by far, it wasn't, by no means, rather, it wasn't what I'm doing today. It had nothing to do with playing and controlling. It was just merely the vibration of that one tone. It really, it hit my heart, and it really caused me to commit my life to it. So that I was ready at that point, to just get into the instrument, period, because I fell in love with it. And when I saw Smitty for the first time, he was so clean, so clear, so apparently together that he knew what he wanted to play, as I said to you, and he played it. He played it well. There were no musical impediments. There were no speech impediments. It's just totally synonymous with someone who is trying to say something and can't get it out, can't communicate it simply because he has a speech impediment or semantics, in some form of semantics or other. He can't say what he wants to say, so obviously he can't communicate. So this, being a non-musical situation, is really the controlling factor in terms of whether a musician communicates or not. Because ultimately it's communication. If you have something to say, you say it. And if you can't speak properly, if you can't communicate, whether it's musical or whether it's just in terms of communicating ideas, word-wise, this is the important thing. It's not whether you play fast or whether you play hip or whether you play whatever. It's it's not the old cliches, at all.
Pat Martino, addressing to the idea of a catalyst, a man by the name of Johnny Smith, who helped, along with his father, forge some new areas for him and direct him. Thank you, Pat Martino. Those comments, most appreciated.
Thank you. Thank
you. Pat Martino. Most of us identify him as a musician. He speaks of music as an environment, just one part of his life, but rather an important envelopment surrounding. What does it lead you to? What does it trigger for you?
Well, it leads me to the thing I love to do the best, number one. That encompasses many things. Music, as I mentioned to you, is just one aspect of living for me. Guitar is even less in terms of a category of being. You know what I'm saying? I feel that I am at this point in my life, and this is not totally contained within the category of music. There are many things that I love. I love a beautiful painting. There are many things that I love. I love a beautiful. I love symphonies. I love music as opposed to just guitar music. You know, this was a tremendous part of my life when I reached a point where I saw through instrumentalist, being an instrumentalist. This was so limiting for me because everything I saw in the guise of guitar. And if if I couldn't see through the guitar, obviously I was intimidated by it. And I went through many years of being intimidated by a guitar. I practiced guitar constantly, and I had to confront many things in terms of just common problems that all instrumentalists have to face. For instance, having to practice the instrument you play, for instance. Well, there's something that we all have in common as players, and that's having to deal with ruts, for instance. That's something we all have in common as players. Okay, a player reaches a point where he sporadically finds himself released from the frustrations that the mechanical aspects of his playing impose upon him. Suddenly